But we do start with Super Sunday, and the problems are mounting for Ruben Amorim and Manchester United after they fell to yet another defeat, this time at Tottenham. United's 12th defeat in 25 league games is their worst record at this stage of a season since they were relegated in 1974. For Spurs, it's a first home league win for 105 days.
I certainly believe there's still a hell of a lot on offer for us this back half of the year. Europe's the obvious one, but even in the league, I think we can make inroads there. We're not happy with where we are. It's unacceptable that we're in the position we are. It's only one game, but I thought today was an important game if we were going to start that process, because getting 3 points today allows us now to start thinking about, okay, let's start to make an impact.
Just like Tottenham, we are back closer to full strength with Stephen back in the building after a little jolly to America, which I imagine you enjoyed.
I did, thanks.
Good. Let's start with Tottenham then. And given how much has been made of their injury problems, how many times the manager himself has mentioned it, did that add even more pressure to get a result yesterday when you keep saying it'll be fine when we get players back? When you do get players back, you have to win, right?
Yeah, you do. And it could become very apparent in the last few weeks that they needed help, they needed players back, and he's got his result, but he's got his result against a team that are also struggling as well, and you could see that within the game that the quality wasn't there, the quality was poor within the game. It was a game where you could tell both sets of players were nervous in approaching the game, but from Postecoglou's point of view and Spurs, it's win at any costs, and they managed to get themselves across the line, but they needed that help of the players coming back, and Maddison played extremely well.
We'll get to James Maddison in just a moment. Sue, it's interesting, isn't it, because it's not just what it does to the starting 11, but when you look at the 5 substitutes that were able to be introduced by Spurs yesterday, Archie Gray, Yves Bissouma, Pape Sarr, Brennan Johnson and Wilson Odobert. That's the difference, isn't it? There have been times this season where Ange Postecoglou was turned round and had nowhere to go. Well,
I think that was the difference between the Manchester United bench when you looked at theirs, full of young players, when he needed something to change. He didn't have that, and that's what Ange Postecoglou's had to deal with and tried to deal with for a number of months now. So it's not just the starting 11 that it affects, but it is also, like you say, not having that ability to change things. And yeah, you just looked at it, and the two teams that they're in a position that you don't expect to see them in. They're two teams that desperately needed to get 3 points, and it was a game that could have gone either way. Obviously, Manchester United had their opportunities, and I think the big difference was Tottenham were able to take them. But yeah, having Vicario back in there as the solid goalkeeper made some real important key saves, and like you mentioned, Maddison, but then also having those players on the bench that you can start bringing back. So you just think as the others start coming back as well, they'll hope that they can start creeping up the table.
But that point that Stephen made about nerves and tension, and I thought it was interesting that Pat Davison mentioned it in his interview with Ange Postecoglou yesterday, that even though the players are back, you can't just suddenly go, well, we'll all feel great now, because they've got used to, in the last few months, losing games, dropping points, and that's bound to creep in the last 15 or 20 minutes. Yeah,
because it wasn't the greatest performance. I think they all said that after the game. It's a performance that they know that it can be better and it will be better. But I think when you're training with those players as well, that helps. So throughout the week, I think he said we had to train with a lot of the younger players had to come in to make up numbers. So the training levels will go up a notch. That will then sort of portray onto the pitch, if you like. And yeah, I think when you get into that rut of losing games and your confidence does go. But I think to get those 3 points, that was the most important thing. They'll then look at the next game, okay, can we go and get 3 points again? So yeah, you could see it was nervy at times. The performance wasn't at the levels they want it to be at. But you can certainly take a lot of positives away from it.
Let's talk about the match winner then, James Maddison, Stephen. And he spoke post-match about maybe silencing a couple of doubters. I think we probably know who he's referring to with what Roy Keane said last week, which if you've not heard it, he said, people say Maddison's the man. When's he going to step up to the plate? He got relegated with Leicester and he'll get relegated with Spurs. Maddison isn't bad when he's not at the darts, but let me tell you, if you think he's going to come back and get Spurs into the top 6, you're in cuckoo land. Firstly, do you feel there's anything unreasonable or over the top from what Roy's had to say there?
I think there's other ways of saying it. I have to be careful what I say myself. No, I think when you're doing interviews like that, you're almost looking for clickbait, aren't you? You're looking for traction to be out on different various outlets, and that's what Roy's done. I think you've got to be so careful what you say about certain players, because what we know with James Maddison is that there's ability there. He's going for a barren spell where it's not quite going well. Now, if you look at Leicester getting relegated, is that James Maddison's fault? No, it's not. Defensively, they were poor. He did all he could in forward areas to create his record for goals and assists in a relegated team was quite brilliant. So when you actually pick out his performances individually against about a relegated team, it doesn't really stack up. I think what we've known from James Maddison in the last couple of years, especially in his time at Spurs, is that he's been a little bit inconsistent, but I don't put that down to just him. I'm talking about his injuries that he's had. That niggling hip injury that he's had for such a long time has definitely hampered him. I think you can see that he's been carrying that for a while now. But the quality's still there. We saw that yesterday.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to respond, isn't it? You know, when you're getting noise from the outside, go and respond like that. Really good performance, match-winning goal. And, you know, I know he said it's difficult to not listen to it, because I think, obviously, as a manager, you'd say, look, don't listen to everything that's going on. Keep yourself in your own little bubble. Yeah. Go and perform. Yes, we're not winning at the moment, but it will come once players start coming back. But it must be hard to do that because of everything, the social media.
Do you think it's harder with social media?
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, even though you're saying don't look at stuff, I'm sure players do. And if they don't, then probably other people will tell them. So 100%. It's difficult, isn't it? So I think the best way that he can do is just perform on the pitch. And like Stephen said, he has had niggly injuries that he's tried to overcome. So, yeah, I was really, really pleased for him that he put on that performance yesterday.
Just on the point then about criticism and how it affected you as a player, firstly, did you read a lot of stuff when you played? Did you find it easy to say, I'm not going to go anywhere near the papers today? And secondly, with this as a reference point, because it's come from someone who's very respected and has achieved everything as a player, would it hurt you more if Roy Keane said it than Joe Bloggs said it? You know, if I'd said it or something? Yeah,
the first point of when I was playing, social media was new, and everyone did read it because it was new, it was interesting, it affected me. I think it affects a lot of people because you suddenly you're looking at opinions, and it's not the good ones you look at, it's the bad ones and the critics. So suddenly your confidence starts to wane, and you start to feel a little bit low about it, and you start to sort of question your ability. Would you listen to Roy Keane? Yeah, you would, because what he's done in the game and the professional career that he's had is been quite incredible. So yes, you do listen to those players, but you also have to take it with a pinch of salt and say, what are they trying to achieve out of it? Well, he's in the media now, and you have to look at what type of person he is in the media. What type of pundit is he? Well, he's that type who does want to give a line, and that's the way Roy is, and that's his style. So I think it's just one of those situations. I think he can be a little bit brutal at times, but that's his style again. So it is what it is. But I think that the way players are now, I don't think they'd read too much into it. I think psychologists would be more heavily involved in that side of the game and how you listen to things and how you take things on board. But I think James Maddison looked at it and said, OK, that's come from Roy Keane, I'm going to prove you wrong, like Sue said. So take it in a positive way and try and spin it.
Talking of the Spurs fans, Sue, then, we talked about blocking out the noise. There was a bit of noise before the match and afterwards in terms of protests directed mainly at Daniel Levy yesterday. I actually wonder whether for Ange Postecoglou and the players, that's almost helpful, that the frustration is largely directed at the board at the moment and that there isn't a sort of lack of support and connection with the team from the supporters?
Yeah, maybe. I think the worry then, though, is if there's a lot of sort of protest against the owner, against Daniel Levy, that you then worry what he's going to do. So I think as a manager, you think, OK, if I'm getting a lot of criticism, what's the first thing that Daniel Levy's going to do? And that's probably get rid of the manager to take that pressure off him. So that would be my only concern. But yeah, the supporters have clearly continued to back the team, and rightly so, because I said it last week, it's so difficult to judge Tottenham with all of the key players missing. They had so many players out, and it wasn't just squad players that might come in, it's a lot of your first 11, your starting team. So it's bound to have an impact. I think they appreciate the young players coming in, filling in, playing out of position, the new players coming straight into the side rather than just easing them in. So I think they understood that, and they understood that that's been a problem for a couple of months now. So you look at other teams, teams, Manchester City without Rodri massively affects them. Liverpool without Van Dijk would massively affect them. So there's certain players that when they're missing, it's bound to affect your team. So I think the fans, that's why they have stuck by the manager and stuck by the team.